how are you doing? Hope you're keeping well. I'm going to premise today's episode with the immortal words of Douglas Adams, don't panic. Okay, don't panic, because although I have the White Dwarfs out, which means it's time for another Decades of Dwarf video, you haven't missed a week, you haven't lost a week. It is still April, don't panic, it's still April. We're not in May yet, although these are May's editions that we're going to be looking at. We're about to go into a series looking at the rules of Factious Waste, how to play Factious Waste, so I'm going to do a string of videos on those, and before I did those I wanted to get this month's, or next month's I should say, May's White Dwarfs out of the way. So let's take a look. Okay, here we are, and I'm going to do things slightly differently this time. Mix things up. We're going to start with the more recent. We're going to start with May 1994, and then we're going to have a look at May 1984. And we're going to do this because I want to spend quite a lot of time actually on the older one, because we've got something very special coming up. I did say, didn't I, that we were going to have something very special. A lot of you have been guessing, none of you have guessed. So let's start off whipping through May 1994. On the cover here, the front cover of the Undead Army book, which was imminently coming out, and this was my first army book, so excited to see that pop up in White Dwarf, although this was before I actually started collecting White Dwarf. Yes, I am that young. This was before my first edition. Also promised for a free Warhammer World map, which unfortunately isn't in here. I would have loved to have been able to show you that, but I cannot. If you know what it looks like, or if you have a copy, do let me know. It would be nice to see what that looks like. Some more adverts in the front here. I'm just flipping through these. Eldar Phoenix Lords. They've been going through the Eldar Codex, showing you all of the aspects, and now we're talking about the Phoenix Lords. That are, of course, the sort of epitome of the warrior aspects. And here we are onto the Undead. A special preview to the forthcoming Warhammer armies. So this is the sort of history breakdown. Army background, all the fun stuff from the Warhammer Army book. So everything except the armies list. So why did you need to buy the armies book? I don't know. Just buy this copy of White Dwarf, and it tells you everything that you need to know. And it's appropriate following on from the Skaven book, because of course there's the whole Nagash Skaven confrontation thing going on here. There he is in his amazing mighty splendour, with this Mark Gibbons illustration. It was always a bit disappointing to me that the Nagash Gary Morley model didn't better represent this crazy, mad, necrotic character here in the Mark Gibbons artwork. But then unfortunately so much of the undead at this time never really captured. I mean, look at this beautiful, again, Mark Gibbons black and white illustration. You can kind of see nods to it in the miniatures with the big winged helmets and the big swords, but just something, maybe it's the pose. I think pretty much it's the posing of them and the way that they were painted in the in the books, of course. But yeah, mostly the posing. I think that just doesn't capture the splendor, horror, majesty, I don't know, one of those words, of these pieces of artwork. And there's no reason that couldn't be a sculpt. I mean, if you look at some of the poses of the older Chaos Warriors, they're in no crazier position than that. Somebody needs to do a true Mark Gibbons Undead homage there. Some more Space Marine Q&A. People who are in Space Marine might be interested in that. There's some crazy things here from Golden Demon 94. So this is before cosplay was such an easy thing to get into. You've got this ridiculous las cannon here. This looks photoshopped, but I bet it's not. I bet that is a big cardboard las cannon that the guy's carrying around there. And these Space Wolf Terminators here, did anyone actually see these? I think these were at Warhammer World for a while. But I never got to see them, and they look like amazing models. I think there was a Chaos Space Marine and things as well, and I've seen them on videos, but I've never actually seen them. They probably don't exist anymore. It would have been brilliant to see those. Some more Blood Bowl-y things. We know how much I love Blood Bowl from previous edition. It's another Blood Bowl battle report there. Giving it a second turn. The maps are slightly better in this one, it's slightly easier to follow what's going on. But they obviously, it's going on for a long time. We've documented the whole match here. I was going to say they obviously decided that this wasn't great for the final battle report because of look how much space there was left in the magazine, but the way this is going on, yeah, there we are. We're in the mail order. The way that's going on, that does seem to last for the entirety of the second half of the magazine. Again, there's too much space dedicated to Blood Bowl. Here are those models. And you can see in black and white. There's definitely the nod to the Mark Gibbons artwork there, but it's just this one's a nice pose. This white here is a nice pose. All of the rest of them are that sort of 1990s hands spread thing, which they very much seem to be trying to get away from in the earlier models, but then embracing in the 90s. Maybe because they cast easier, I don't know. But yeah, very static poses here. Oh well, never mind. Still got these plastics. One of my earliest box sets was the Skeleton Chariot. It was after they all came together in the Skeleton Horde, but I got the Chariot and stuck it together with polystyrene cement before I vowed never to stick together another plastic model again. These were some of my favourite ever plastics, just because they're so versatile, they're so poseable, and the detailing on them is really nice, and they paint up really easily. There we go. Right, we've whizzed through there. Probably too quickly we've whizzed through there, but yeah, most of it's Blood Bowl anyway. Right, enough. Let us walk back 10 years to May 1984. And this cover, let me find out who this cover is by. I should have done that as part of my research. Who's the cover? Angus Fieldhouse, don't know who that is. Never mind, somebody will know who Angus Fieldhouse is. Point me in the direction of more good Angus Fieldhouse artwork. This gives us a bit of a clue as to what exciting things are coming up. Minas Tirith, a scenario for Warhammer. Haha. Here's a continuation of the other, you can't see my inverted commas down here, the other role-playing games. So we looked at D&D all in one issue. Now we're looking at RuneQuest, a world of difference it says. We're looking at Tunnels and Trolls, Chivalry and Sorcery, Warhammer, although here this Warhammer that it's talking about, I believe this is pre Warhammer Fantasy Battles. This is talking about the boxed set that included sort of miniature games rules for roleplay characters, and was followed up by Forces of Fantasy. So this is still 2nd edition? Yeah, I think 2nd edition Warhammer. So they're clearly still seeing it as a tabletop roleplay rather than a fantasy battle game. But it also says that it's useful for large-scale campaigns. A lot of it is is for battling with characters that already exist. And it says more material is needed before the game will really become established. Well, that was obviously the next step, wasn't it, with Warhammer Fantasy Battle going into the 3rd edition, and also Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay absolutely exploding off the scene with details. So more on that to come, I feel. And Man, Myth and Magic, which I had never heard of before. I covered in other Fantasy Battles, and here we are. Minas Tirith. A Joe Diva Warhammer scenario based on the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, and featuring this rather lovely Grond hammer of the underworld of old here, with a wolf head. That's not a wolf, that's a very friendly looking fox head. And the rumour for a while has been that this is actually a walking stick, that Joe Diva turned a walking stick head into Grond. Now, back last year, I went on a trip to London with Mike, who runs Broadsword Miniatures, to pick up this very object. So I'm going to cut away to some images of Grond as it is now. That's now in his possession, the rather magnificent Joe Diva battering ram, along with its beast train comprising of Mike will have to comment and tell you what all of the models in this are, but they're Britain's bears, I believe. Polar bears and brown bears, painted black with red eyes, very, very shiny bears. And of course, the kind of dragony monsters at the beginning, which I really can't remember what they are, but Mike will tell you what they are. Now this is as a scenario is something I was hoping to talk with Mike about, because I know Mike's been building up the forces to run this scenario, and yeah, I would have liked to have got his insights into it, but he's a little bit camera shy, and we didn't get much of a chance to sit down and talk through the scenario. But maybe once he's run it, or when he's got everything together, we can talk to him about the process of doing that. I was sort of struck by the lists here when I was reading through it. Obviously, this is using representational forces. They're not the exact number. So although you've got characters and units, Steward Denethor is one figure, as you would expect. Faramir is one figure, as you would expect. Then you get on to Guards of the Citadel. There are 2 of those. Rangers of Ithilien, 3 of those. Men of Lossanac, 2 of those. Men of Ringlow Vale, 3 of those. Blah, blah, blah. Fisherfolk of Ethir, 1 of those. Men at Arms of Dol Amroth, 7. Knights of Dol Amroth, 1, to accompany the Prince of Dol Amroth. It seems a bit odd having this sort of mismatch between what are clearly representational numbers of forces and then also characters, and using the Warhammer rules where one individual character is as significant as a unit of 1 representational troops. That seems a bit funny, but I guess, you know, numerically you're not going to have the numbers of figures to put on this battle on a 1-to-1 representational basis, or even the space on the table, because let's face it, this is a big thing. Where does it give you the size? So this is designed for an 8x4 table, laid out with this sort of corner of Minas Tirith here, and the Pelennor Fields and the Pelagia Gate on the Ramasekor, and then a choice of 3 landings for Aragorn to arrive, so as not to make it too easy for the evil characters to lie in wait for him. But yeah, clearly you're not going to have the space to do the whole thing at 25 to 28 mil. With each of the figures represented. You could maybe do it in 6 mil. You could maybe do it in 10 mil. Don't know, possibly. But yeah, if we look at the evil side, you've got 1 Gothmorg Lieutenant of Morgul, yes, 60 Haradrim Cavalry, 60 Orcs of the Eye. Where's the total number of miniatures here? Oh, I thought it gave the total number of figures anyway. It doesn't. You've got 55 Rohirrim here, but they're still massively outnumbered by the things this side. So I went to my go-to on all things Tolkien. I went to this Atlas of Tolkien's Middle-earth, Battle of the Pelennor Fields, and it gives a total estimated force size, and it does absolutely point out that, you know, Gondor is massively outnumbered here. 11,250 troops that it can bring to the table, as opposed to minimum 45,000 coming from Mordor. This is a big assault here. And if we have a look here, we've got Lossanac sending 200 well-armed troops and Ringlow Vale sending 300. So I think we've got those here, we've got those numbers. Ringlow Vale, it says, are sending 3 and Lossanac 2. So we've got a ratio of 1 to 100 figures going on here on the table. And it's got some recommendations for miniatures, and I think Mike's been working his way through all of these. So yeah, what I was going to say is it's not an insignificant number, even in 1 to 100 figures. It's not an insignificant number to bring. You could start going down the Gondor list and going 1 figure, 2, 3, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1. Oh, this is quite easy, we'll get this done, no problem. 55 Rohirrim, okay, well, yeah, okay, maybe that's a bit of a struggle, but not too bad. And then you go here and you go 60, 35, 20, 25, 12, 60, 8, 25. There are a lot of evil creatures to summon there. Anyway, here we are moving. So I thought you'd enjoy seeing Mike's little treasure there, a piece of the past come to life, and still in pretty good condition. Missing a few chains, missing a few orcs to push it around, but I'm sure Mike will get on to that, because he seems to be quite good at collecting those old figures. Here we are, we've got Open Box reviewing Death Trap Dungeon, which is a classic, obviously, and Island of the Lizard King, which I confess that I have not played. Threads, second part of his grand journey, where the evil wizard Toomey Cooper has recruited him and hypnotized him to carry out his evil bidding. Yes, which goes well, as we shall see in the next episode. A short tale of gothic horror. Yes, it's a short tale, fairly predictable. This is absolutely on a par with the quality of fiction writing that I have come to expect from Games Workshop. You'd probably enjoy it if you were 12 years old, which, to be fair, a lot of people probably were when they were reading this magazine. And remember all of that goblin studies that we had in earlier editions? Well, now we're on to Orcish Society. Rufus Wedderburn has written an article on the naked orc, describing various different types of orcs, and as you can see from the fact that it says soldier orc, Snaga and Uruks, he's drawing a lot from Tolkien in this instance. But then I guess that was the thing that made orcs, certainly the name orc, big and popular, although Tolkien didn't make it up. It comes from folklore, but Lord of the Rings was probably the first piece of popular fiction to use it, so it made sense that would then be the route that it took into D&D, and that's what the author is drawing off here. But it's interesting, he tries to not go into quite so much detail as there was with the goblins, giving them deities and tribes and things, but definitely differentiating it so that you go into a room, there are 6 orcs, is not just 6 orcs, so there's a bit of variation and a bit of background to it. Spare parts. What's this? Car Wars. Aha, there you go. People who know Car Wars, a Games Workshop product, featured in White Dwarf. We're going to skip past again Castle of Lost Souls, because I want to do it live. So let's skip past and not even look too closely at the pictures. Gobbledygook lets out a nasty evil demon. Oh well, never mind. Some praise for the new look of White Dwarf. NPCs for Traveller, some random rolled up characters here, some druidic bits and pieces for RuneQuest, the Travellers, and another piece here. Not coloured photos this time. We've had our coloured photos of miniatures for this edition back in the early stages. There you go, there's our coloured picture, just the one, but worth putting the map in colour as well, obviously. There's our colour for this for this issue, but this week's Tabletop Heroes is talking about buildings, because why not jump from here's how to paint a knight to let's make a wizard's tower and besiege it with hundreds and hundreds of soldiers and war machines. Yeah, why not? Let's do that. So yeah, this is Joe Deaver and Gary Chalk talking about the various war machines and castles that are available on the market, and walking you through the making of this rather splendid Wizard's Tower, which I think is a Gary Chalk piece, and then knocking it down with siege engines. Some more creatures for AD&D here. Bits and pieces. Oh, this is a treasure chest. What have we got? Wild Hunt, Hearing Aids, Silent Tongue, Unusual Magic Armours. And on this final page, with a few more bits of letters, but the mighty Tony Ackland Dwarf steam engine here. Have been privileged to see one of these in the lead. It is a mighty heavy, weighty beast. There need to be more of these kind of contraptions around. They're just genius. A bit of a precursor, I guess, to the land ship. But yeah, just glorious steam powered thing. And yeah, there we are at the end. Almost at the end. I think everything else is adverts. Yes, there we are, at the end of May's edition of White Dwarf. Excellent, there you go. So I hope you enjoyed that quick flick through. As I said, next week we're going to be looking at how to play Factious Waste. I'm going to do that over a series of weeks and videos like I did with the Woods. So I hope you'll find that interesting, and then we'll come back together for June's edition. Here's a sneak preview. Ooh, June's edition of White Dwarf, which will be the last one in this current folder, and then I'll have to go and get my other folder. Ooh, we've come a long way. Look, we've come a long way from... Actually, we didn't do this one or this one. Yeah, that's where we started. So yeah, we've done a fair bit. Anyway, that's June. So join me again for that one, and join me next week to look at, as I said, how to play Factious Waste. Take care. See you then.